Today, we are going to go through a couple of basic movements that you'll see a lot in Alkalign and you may see in other areas of life. And we're going to go over the terminology that goes with them. I know that starting something new can be really intimidating. It can feel like learning a new language. And it is, because we weren't born with a how-to manual of how to move our body and what certain things were called. But it is important to know your body so that you can listen to your body and make choices that feel right for you. I am your Sherpa, I am your guide. I can geek out about all this stuff all day long, but ultimately you're the only one who lives in your body, and you're the only one who can really understand and feel what is happening. So the number one cardinal rule at Alkalign is listen to your body when it's whispering. Pay attention. If something isn't working for you, let's find something else that does. We want this to feel good in your body, and we want this to be enjoyable. We want you to feel better than when you started after every session, whether that's a 5-minute thing you're doing or a full, 45-minute class. Okay, today, all you need is a surface that you can be on comfortably. I'm on a hard floor, so I have a mat behind me. If you have a carpet, you probably don't need the mat, as long as it's something that you can be on hands and knees on. Just avoid, a hardwood floor without any cushioning or tile. We're going to spend a lot of time on the ground because these are the building blocks of Alkalign. We're going to work from the ground up. Okay, so to start, find your comfortable surface, and we're going to start in hands and knees. If hands and knees doesn't work for you, if you can't bear weight like this, you can come to a seated position, and you can either be sitting on the ground like I am here, or if getting down to the ground is working for you today, you can sit in a chair. We're going to start something called a cat-cow. If you're familiar with yoga, you might be familiar with this. A lot of times Alkalign refer to this as kitten-calf because it doesn't have to be this huge dramatic ranges of motion. So I'm going to show you in all fours first. Place your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. Take an inhale, look up, and then exhale, round your spine and dome the center part of your back up. So when you inhale, and kind of arch your back a little bit. See that little dip? That's called extension. When you flex your spine and dome your spine up, that's called spinal flexion. So extension and flexion. And again, I see some people really, especially people who are hypermobile, like to work in the end range of motion. It's this huge, dramatic movement. Start small. Start small. Just articulate through each vertebra in your spine. This is really good at awakening your brain so that your brain and body are connected. And that's really the most important part, right? Mindless movement without any involvement from your brain can lead to lots of injuries. Okay, if this isn't working for you on hands and knees, then come to a seated position, interlace your fingers, take your hands to your heart, inhale, sit up tall, and then exhale, push your hands away, kind of round through your upper back and just get some mobility through your spine this way. It's also a good way to incorporate your breath. So again, inhale, exhale. You're here, inhale and exhale. So we were talking about 3 different positions of the spine. Extension, as you come to this position here, neutral, and then flexion. I'll show it to you in seated. I'm going to sit on a block just so you can see a little bit of a variation between my dark pants and this dark mat. Okay, so when you extend your spine, that's like when you reach up for the top shelf to grab something. Flex your spine is when you bend down to pick up your dog, right? You round your back. Neutral is where you have a little soft curve right here in your low back. Everybody's neutral is a little bit different. And then you can pull your abdominals in and sit nice and tall. Some people's ribs kind of naturally flare, so they're almost an extension all the time. Some people kind of sit into their low back, they're in flexion all the time. We're going to practice finding your best neutral and then strengthening those muscles to support neutral. We spend most of our time at Alkalign in neutral, and we hope that you spend most of your day in neutral, but we recognize that we have lots of habits and movement patterns that don't necessarily align with that. So a little bit of this is unwinding some bad habits and adopting some new habits, and that's going to lead to a healthier spine, healthier hips, and we're going to give you all the tools to do that. So cat-cow, extension, flexion, and then neutral. We're gonna layer on from this all fours position. Again, if all fours doesn't work for you, you can do this down on the ground on your abdominals, of course, unless you are expecting, or you can do this holding onto a stable surface standing. Okay, lots of different options. Again, we're trying to pick the option that works for you. It's like ordering off a menu, right? Things, we kind of serve you one thing, but you can pick off menu items if what you see doesn't work. You can also pick the sides. You ever do that? You take, oh, I like that protein, but I like the sides that come with that protein. Can you mix and match? Yes, lots of mix and matching at Alkalign. Okay, so from your hands and knees, slide your right leg back, lift your right leg up. So you went from all fours to all threes. Hold your abdominals in. This is right away a low balance challenge. Lift your leg up. Squeeze your right glutes as tight as you can. Your glutes are right here. So squeeze your glutes and lift your leg up. So notice I'm not lifting higher than my hip. If you do that, if your leg lifts too high, you're going to lift with your low back. So keep your leg at or below hip level. Squeeze your glutes and lift from there. Hold your abdominals in. You're lifting away from gravity. You're also lifting your leg in opposition to your abdominal engagement. You have 4 counts, 3, 2, and 1. Set your knee down. Take a little stretch. We call this a child's pose. So I open my knees a little bit wider. Sit your hips back down on your heels. Breathe. If this doesn't work for your knees, you can come into an extension stretch where you keep your hips over your knees. Little different stretch. This is more mid-back. This is more low back, but I recognize that some people have cranky hips and knees, so child's pose might not work for you. That's okay. Okay, we're gonna switch sides. Slide your left leg back, pull your abdominals in, engage your glutes. Notice if this is trickier on this side versus the other side. We all have imbalances in our body. And then squeeze your glutes, lift your leg up. So again, notice that my leg isn't lifting wildly. I'm not lifting with my low back. I'm squeezing my glutes, just barely lift. This is trying to strengthen your glute muscles, which are part of your core. We do a lot of core strengthening at Alkalign. A lot of people think of core as abdominals, and yes, your abdominals are part of your core, but you have a lot of back muscles, and your glutes are part of your core as well. You have 4, 3, 2, and 1. Set your knees down. Now this time, keep your hips over your knees. Walk or slide your hands forward, melt your chest down. We call this an extension stretch. Breathe. It's really good for your mid-back. For me, my mid-back is really tight. Okay, we're going to layer up. So come back to all fours. Again, if your hands or your shoulders are getting tired in this all fours position, you can come down to your abdominals. You can try something else, mix it up. You can hit pause, take a little break. It's up to you. Slide your right leg back. This time you're going to reach your left arm forward. Lift your right leg and now lift your arm and leg together. And soften your right elbow. I see a lot of people lock out their arm, especially if you're hypermobile, it's a lot of excessive load in your shoulder and your elbow. So soften the elbow. You have 4 more counts. 3, 2, and 1. Set your right knee down. The left hand that was just lifted, slide it underneath. We call this a thread the needle stretch. Hi. Sometimes people take their opposite hand around. This is good for spinal mobility, for shoulders, and then come on up and switch sides. Slide your left leg back, reach your right arm forward, lift the arm and leg up. So again, I'm not lifting like this, right? Stay in neutral, pull your abdominals in, lift from your glutes and your upper back. This is tricky on balance, so if you feel a little wobbly, that's okay. It will get better with practice. Practice makes progress. You have 4 counts, 3, 2, and 1. Set your left knee down. Now take the right arm that was lifted, slide it underneath. Sorry to be antisocial for a moment. I'll wave to you with this hand. Come on up. Always remember to breathe. 100% of movement specialists agree that breathing is a good idea. And now we're going to do a little postural work in a seated upright position. So this is something you can practice while you're at your desk, while you're riding your bike, while you're sitting in the car. I'm going to use the yoga block to prop myself up. You don't necessarily need it, but if you're tight in your low back or your hamstrings, it just gives you a little bit more room in those areas of your body. Plus I like, it helps me feel a little bit taller, which I'm relatively short, so I like to feel a little bit taller. Okay, so sit on the ground. If you want to do this from a chair, scoot forward so you're in the front edge of your chair and your feet are flat on the floor like this. If you're on the ground like I am or on a block, flex your feet and make sure you just have a slight bend in your knees. Sometimes I see people sitting like this and it puts your hips in hip flexion, and when your knees are too close to you, you'll go like this. So this is also something I think about the ergonomics of your car. If your seat is too close to the steering wheel, back up a little bit and give your legs a little bit more room. Okay, take your hands to your hips, and I just want you to practice kind of tilting the hips and untilting your hips. So you're drawing your hips towards your ribs, flexion, and then neutral. And you might even be able to get into extension, I guess, especially if you're a rib flare. A lot of us are in extension without even knowing it, sitting and standing. But just kind of feel that like we did in the cat-cow, but in a seated position. A healthy spine is one that can move in different directions. Again, even though we spend most of our time in neutral, we're always talking about neutral, and that's the healthiest position for your spine. It's really hard to avoid extension and flexion if you're living like your life to your fullest self, right? I think about that. I play tennis sometimes, I can bend down and pick up the tennis ball. I would love to say I'm in neutral all the time, but I'm not, right? Okay, so find neutral. Place one hand on your abdominals, one hand on your low back. Lift up tall. Imagine you are growing up through the top of your head and you're got a stack of something really delicate on your head. You want to try to balance it. Pull your ribs in. Take an inhale. Go ahead, exhale. So the space between your hands is that deep, deep layer of your abdominals called the transverse abdominis. We talk about this muscle all the time because it's really important for back health and for hip health. It stabilizes your spine. Take your hands into what we call prayer. Affix your thumbs to your sternum, and we're going to do a little bit of rotation. So rotate your torso to the right, come back through center, rotate to left. We're going to go over some of this terminology in a little bit more depth in some of our modules, and then you'll hear it in every Alkalign class. We take rotations of functional movement. And when you go side to side here, you can notice if you have more rotation on one side versus the other. Last one to the right, last one to the left, and then come back through center. Sit up as tall as you can. Close your eyes, draw your inner thighs toward each other. Pull your abdominals in. When you sit taller, you feel better from the inside out. So practice this throughout your day. Practice your neutral spine. And I will see you in the next module.